The Cleveland Browns passing attack in 2024 will be the best during Kevin Stefanski's regime, and Jerry Jeudy is going to be a major reason why. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd, and I appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. The everyday crowd keeps on growing. Don't miss out. Join the everyday crowd. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Of course, the show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Obviously, a lot of excitement right now, about 12 hours away from the release of the 2024 NFL schedule. We're going to talk a little bit about the Browns opener versus the Dallas Cowboys. We'll move that to segment 3. But looking over and watching tape and get a little bit deeper into Jerry Jeudy here and what the Browns are returning as far as the receiving room, the tight end room, what they did at the running back room, you can see where this is going to be very, very impressive for the Cleveland Browns as far as throwing the ball. First off, there's going to be the need. We don't know when Nick Chubb is going to return for this team. It was always going to be that graduation process for the Browns with all that was invested in Deshaun Watson. This was going to become a team that threw the football more probably than they ran it, of course. Every team does that. But for the Browns, it was always a very closer margin in how much they ran as opposed to how much they passed because they had such an incredible running back in Nick Chubb. And they truly haven't had their franchise quarterback for 2 seasons now, of course, missing most of 2022 and missing a lot of 2023 with injury. So you never got to that. They were forced to, and they thought that was going to be the plan earlier in 2023 when Chubb went down week 2. Of course, sort of happened. It tried to happen, but Deshaun out a little bit, then back. Then the most successful we ever saw Deshaun, and you thought toward the end of that Raven game, going into the following games, that's it. This is Deshaun's team. They're going to throw the living daylights out of the football. And then we learned a few days later after that Raven game that Deshaun Watson season was over, leaving the Browns to scurry, but did an impressive job, obviously, getting all those quarterbacks involved, finding a way for this team to throw over 4,000 yards last year, and the miraculous run that Joe Flacco gave them to close out the 2023 season. But you made the trade for Jeudy, and this is a player, obviously, the Cleveland Browns have coveted. They tried to chase Jerry Jeudy at the trade deadline. They tried to chase Jerry Jeudy in the offseason. They tried to chase Jerry Jeudy at the previous trade deadline in 2022. Who knows what the actual price would have been to pay for Jerry Jeudy in those times. Browns made this move, and anybody who is an everydayer of Locked On Browns, so this is a guy I was trying to press for Andrew Berry to acquire for a while. I just thought if you were able to get him in here, and very, very typical of the moves the Browns have made the last 3 off seasons now at the wide receiver position, you are looking for effective route runners. Amari Cooper, certainly an effective, excellent route runner. Elijah Moore, for whatever anybody thinks about him, Elijah Moore is a very good route runner. Jerry Jeudy, whatever you thought of Jerry Jeudy in his time in Denver, there is one thing that Jerry Jeudy is. He is a very good route runner. It makes your passing game flow easier. It makes your passing game stay on schedule, stay on time. When guys run the routes the correct way, no special sauce, the quarterback, regardless of who is lined up where, knows what his timing should be, knows where everybody is going to be at every given nanosecond within the time, from the time he starts his drop to the time he sets up to the time he is ready to release the ball. It is of the utmost importance for a passing game. When everything is on schedule, when everything is on time, it should lead to a heavy amount of success. And I think that is one of the things that's going to be really, really key for this team this year. Now, you already know you're bringing back Amari Cooper and his 1,200 plus yards. You know you were bringing in Jerry Jeudy. And if you want to say the best benchmark at worst, could be 750. I think it's going to be a lot closer to 1,000 yards. You kind of get the idea of where these numbers can go for the Cleveland Browns in 2024 as far as the amount of yards they can throw for. 4,011 last year. I believe that is a number that they could easily eclipse here in 2024. Between Amari, between Njoku, that's 2,000 yards right there. Even the kids, Moore, Tillman, David Bell, those three combined for 1,000 yards receiving last year as well. And we haven't even gotten to, and we're going to talk a little bit about the move for Nyheim Hines and that addition to Jerome Ford, who was obviously a solid player within the receiving game last year as well. But Jeudy, it was a wasted time for him, unfortunately, in Denver. Things never really got going correctly. Then the team made the move for Russell Wilson. Then the team made the move for Sean Payton to be the head coach. So basically you had this head coach with a quarterback that he did not want. And you had this quarterback who will be a Hall of Famer one day in Russell Wilson in a situation where it was really just difficult for Russ. And, everybody, well, Russell played well. Does he play bad? He's Russell Wilson. He didn't play up to the standard of Russell Wilson. So anything less than that, you don't get credit for playing better. You're Russell Wilson. You're a Hall of Famer. People expect you to play like a Hall of Famer. So Jeudy kind of just got lost in that mix. Denver went heavier running the ball, a lot more of Russ using his legs and getting away from just even trying to throw the ball and kind of curtailing development of a player like Jerry Jeudy. He is going to come in here. And the thing with Jerry is you get a lot of the big play. You get a lot of the plus 25 yards. So the Browns, who get that with Amari Cooper, now you pair that and you get another guy like that with Jerry Jeudy. So when you start running off those chunk routes, and this is even before we're talking about run after the catch, when you're getting these guys who are running the money, big yardage routes, the skinny posts, the et cetera, that lead to a lot of matriculation of the ball down the field, a guy like Jerry Jeudy, that just gets a guy like that going. It's that one big play. And then all of a sudden, it opens up the rest of the route tree, the hooks, the slants, the regular post patterns, square routes, all of this stuff. Once you get a secondary on their heels, the gimme throws, the layup throws, the smoke screens, all of those things now come into play. And it just makes things so much easier, and it makes for statistical yardage to just very easily go higher and higher and higher. So getting Jerry Jeudy in here, pairing it with what has already been in the building. Look, everybody, the Cleveland Browns can't develop wide receivers. That's fine. They found a way around it. They've acquired 3 solid wide receivers, 3 straight off seasons, basically by stealing them from other teams in the NFL. We're going to continue on here. Your latest Locked On Browns. Appreciate everybody for being along for the ride. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns rolls on. Jerry Jeudy going to be the piece that sets the Cleveland Browns passing game up for a lot of success. As I said, you have Amari Cooper and his 1,250 yards, keeping in mind that was only through 15 games. Didn't play the final 2 games of the 2023 season. And even remember this, going into week 2 in Pittsburgh, I believe as late as Sunday, Amari Cooper was listed as doubtful. Remember, Amari Cooper was dealing with a lot of scar tissue issues with the groin surgeries that he had in the previous offseason. Went out that night in Pittsburgh, 7 receptions, 90 yards, I believe, were the numbers. And Amari was kind of dinged up all year. Took a hit. I believe it was a Denver game. 1 week he had the concussion. I think it was a Seattle game the 1 week. Took an internal shot. And Amari still went out there and just balled week in, week out, even though the fact that he was pretty seriously dinged up, probably had the catch of the year. The Randy Moss, basically mossed the defenders in the San Francisco 49ers game. Amari Cooper, and look, the target total for Amari Cooper here in 2024 is probably going to be regressed a tad bit. And it's understandable. There's just a lot of mouths to feed. It'll still fuel and go through Amari Cooper. But the point is going to be is you cannot, if you're a defense, dictate the type of coverage and attention you did to Amari Cooper in years past with the Cleveland Browns the way you are this year. The group collectively is just too good, and it is just too proven. Elijah Moore, over 650 yards last year. I know some people felt maybe Elijah was a little bit of a disappointment last year, but still, 650 yards is a decent amount for a guy who is not your number one wide receiver. You compare that with Jeudy, who comes in with his 700 plus from last season. David Njoku with almost 890 yards receiving. And like I said, between Moore, Tillman, and David Bell, those three accounted for over 1,000 yards receiving. Now we get to other guys. Jerome Ford with over 300. I think it was like 320, right in that range, 320 yards receiving last year. Nyheim Hines is a guy that's probably going to give you, and normally gives you, around 300 yards receiving as well. Imagine being able to get over 600 yards receiving out of your backfield. And with all of this that's going to go on down the field and being able to press vertically, which we saw the Browns do so effectively to close out 2023 season with Joe Flacco at the helm, all of a sudden, everything, like I said, opened up underneath. You have Nyheim Hines, who is a great receiving running back. Jerome Ford, whatever you want to say about what he did last year. And look, some of it was on Jerome at times. Some of it was on the offensive line at times. Jerome trying to do too much. But some of that was due to the fact that he was used to an offensive line that was such a plus run blocking unit. So maybe he pressed a little bit when things weren't there. But Jerome, Tennessee game, obviously the huge, stop and go for the touchdown against the Tennessee Titans. Of course, the romp through the park, the Thursday night game against the New York Jets, Jerome and Joe cut up and then wheeling down the sidelines, in, out, into the end zone for a huge touchdown. The talent is absolutely ridiculous as far as the Browns' skill position is there. Another tight end, and Andrew Berry, please don't disappoint me. You're going to get me another tight end. Right, Andrew? Right, Andrew? But so for David, and you saw just the growth and maturation of a player of David Njoku's skill last year. Now, David, over 80 receptions, over 880 yards receiving, the monster first half against the New York Jets that basically just put that game on ice early, and then basically just cemented the fact that the Cleveland Browns made such a calculated yet questioned decision to pay David Njoku like a top 5 tight end in the NFL when he had not shown to you yet that he was performing like a top 5 tight end in the NFL. Those are the decisions that can kind of make or break you sometimes as a front office. The Browns made that heavy investment. And unlike folks who are heavy into analytics, that was one where maybe you looked at the analytics and said, maybe they're not following the plan necessarily. Because, the analytics say, well, this is what we got, and we're going to, so basically it wasn't shown that David Njoku was worth the investment that the Cleveland Browns had put into him with that contract extension. And you want to know what? They're smelling like roses for it now. David not only has become that player on that field, he is that player within the city, within the locker room. He will talk and stand up for his franchise at any given moment. Him and Micah Parsons jawing a little bit at each other week 1 should probably be some pretty good fodder. So for me, and look, this is all predicated on Deshaun Watson. And look, I've said this a couple of times in the last couple of weeks talking to people. Deshaun Watson, like everybody gets caught up into that $230 million number. And I get it. I do. Is a tremendously large number. It's certainly not the same number now that it was 2 years ago when that deal was originally put pen to paper. There could be a new Deshaun Watson deal. Who knows? It'll be a lot of it will be depending on this season, of course. But The number amount doesn't necessarily have to equate to a certain amount of statistical production. It does not mean that Deshaun Watson has to throw for 5,000 yards. It does not mean that Deshaun Watson has to throw for 50 touchdowns. It does not mean that Deshaun Watson has to throw for less than 10 interceptions. Deshaun Watson has to go out there and take what is given to him by opposing defenses. And with this group of skill players as receivers, Amari Cooper, David Njoku, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, David Bell, Jamari Thrash, Naheem Hines, Jerome Ford. It is all there that Deshaun's just going to have to take what is given to him. There is not a defense in the NFL today that is going to be able to shut down this passing attack. If the offensive line does what they're supposed to do, and I think there'll be a big return there are going to be people open. Deshaun will have to get through his progressions quickly. But when you're running sets of Amari Cooper, David Njoku, Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy, Jerome Ford, Naheem Hines, or throw another receiver on the field for zero personnel, there are going to be players open. And then, whether a lot of it's going to be the short drags, the backside post that my buddy Jake Burns loves to talk about, and good luck to Jake Burns and his new venture as Jake goes solo on his own. He's going to stinking crush it, trust me. And talks all the time about the backside slants, the backside posts, which means we're flowing things to the right. But you want to know what? Everybody kind of sees that we're flowing things to the right. So that means I'm going to have Jerry Jeudy, or I'm going to have Elijah Moore. I'm going to have somebody coming on that backside post. And guess what? If we're jumping on that backside post, right? Guess what I got coming behind the backside post? That's where I got Naheem Hines. That's where I got Jerome Ford, either stepping out to the flat or rolling up the sidelines on a wheel-like choice type route. And how are you going to cover this? Everybody is a plus receiver. Amari Cooper is a plus receiver. Elijah Moore is a very capable plus receiver. So is Jerry Jeudy. So is David Njoku. So are both of these running backs. The Cleveland Browns, and it took some time, and maybe they understood doing it through the draft just wasn't working for them. So they decided to go off script, and they went off script. I believe it was about a week before St. Patrick's Day, and they acquired Amari Cooper. Following offseason, that Elijah Moore dalliance that went on all offseason, the Browns finally got it to work for them. They got their guy, and it worked out for them. It should pay even bigger dividends here. And then again, another guy they continue to dalliance, and they had chased for a very, very long time. It's one thing I love about the Browns, the way the Browns front office is. If there is a player they identify and they truly want, that candle never goes out. They will go and go and go till they can finally get that player in here. Jadeveon Clowney was one of those guys they chased for a while before they got him. Finally did it now with Jerry Jeudy. It's going to be a show as far as the passing game is concerned in 2024. We're going to continue on. Your latest Locked On Browns. Everybody stick around. It's winner's sake all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Closing out your latest Locked On Browns, your host, Jeff Lloyd. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. To the everyday crowd, you guys are greatly appreciated. We need more of you. Subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Be like the everydayers. Of course, the show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. At the time of this recording, we only have one confirmed Cleveland Browns game for 2024, and that would be the opener. Sunday, September 8th, 4:25 at home versus the Dallas Cowboys. And oh, by the way, on the color commentary, in his first NFL game, fresh off a celebrity roast that I had a lot of thoughts about. Some good, a lot bad. But Tom Brady will be on the call. for Browns versus Cowboys. You go back to the last time the Browns and Cowboys got together, 2020 in Dallas. Obviously, very strange time at the time, just right in the height of COVID. Dallas had a stadium that was large enough where they could have some people in the building. And a Browns team went out there and just absolutely took it to the Dallas Cowboys. If you remember, there was the big Jarvis Landry to Odell touchdown pass. But the team just went nuts. Odell was probably by far his best game in a Cleveland Brown uniform. Then a few weeks later, obviously, that was basically the end of that year for Odell, and then kind of set the stage for basically the end of Odell's tenure with the Cleveland Browns. Dallas came in late and scored a lot of points as the Browns had, incapable of playing any type of prevent defense back in those days. They certainly didn't have the aggressive defense they had now, where they get a lead and they just turn out the lights on you because they can just bring pass rusher after pass rusher and just end your day quickly. But the Cowboys themselves, and look, I don't know if the Dallas Cowboys essentially improved themselves this year in the offseason. Just, you're going to look at this, the first round pick is going to go the Jedrick Wills route. So he's going to go from college right tackle to NFL left tackle. His first NFL career start is against the Cleveland Browns and Myles Garrett. Good luck with that, young man. We'll see how that all works out for you. Lose a player like Tony Pollard. I don't know what their thought process was at the running back position. Our Locked On Cowboys host Marcus Mosher every day, every week, running back. They never listened to him. You brought back Ezekiel Elliott. You thought he was too slow 2 years ago. That's why you let him go. But then you bring him back. I'm assuming Ezekiel Elliott didn't get any faster in the time being. This team has had some hits on the offensive line. Micah Parsons, very, very good, phenomenal player, defensive player of the year candidate for them every year. But a lot of the role guys, the core guys who were doing some of the dirty work left to go to Washington as their defense coordinators, now the head coach there. So they took a lot of hits. You're going to get your cornerback back in Diggs, and you had the emergence last year of Deron Bland with one of the most amazing cornerback seasons in NFL history. I don't know if it'll ever get the justice that it deserved, what Deron Bland did for that team last season. But I'm not sure the Dallas Cowboys, and this is where we're going to get to this now too. Strength of schedule. The Cleveland Browns are facing the toughest strength of schedule for 2024. What sense does this possibly make? You're basing it off of what teams did last season. The NFL and rosters, it is a war of attrition. You figure the lower end teams, as far as roster turnover from one season to the next, is probably 26, 27%. You figure some of the higher teams, it's probably 40, 41. So you're basing it on what the team did last year when you know right off the bat, and just a rough number, 1/3 of the roster has been changed. 1/3. So almost 20 guys. So the strength of schedule, and look, it sells. People eat it up. But strength of schedule is a myth. It is based on something that is almost 1 calendar year old. The teams are not the same. Health factor is enormous. 17 games, there are going to be teams that say to a guy, look, I'm not playing you at 80% when I can play you at 95% next week. You're going to sit down. I have other guys. We'll find a way to get through this one and get you back next week. People fall for it. They really do. So, yes, the Dallas Cowboys were a good team and made the playoffs last year and won the division. The team is vastly different. It is a vastly different football roster than it was last year. You still have Dak Prescott, who can throw with anybody in the NFL. You have CeeDee Lamb. In one of my opinions, CeeDee Lamb is probably one of the most underrated offensive playmakers in the NFL. And it's weird to say that about somebody who wears the star on their helmet and plays for the Dallas Cowboys. But CeeDee Lamb is underrated. Micah Parsons, if I'm Dallas, it's just full-time pass rusher at this point. Because I think the things he does other than pass rush, somebody else can do those things. Let him loose. Put him in the A gap. Put him in the B gap. Put him outside. Let Micah Parsons do whatever Micah Parsons wants to do. Because there is a player with Defensive Player of the Year potential and the potential to probably get 17 to 20 sacks each and every NFL season. He's intelligent. He's athletic. He knows what he's looking for. He knows where the easy spot is. That is something Dallas should do with Micah Parsons. You're going to get Diggs back, pair him with Bland. That should be a really solid, physical, good coverage and gambling cornerback unit that can create turnovers. So there's going to be days where the Dallas Cowboys secondary has great days, and there's probably going to be days where, they're going to, bank robbers that got caught before they even got in the bank. But that's the way you play. That's the way you roll with it. So we got to a lot here today. I really think Jerry Jeudy is going to be a big difference maker for the Cleveland Browns. Compare that with everything they have in Deshaun Watson. The Cleveland Browns are going to throw for the most yards they have ever thrown for in the Kevin Stefanski regime. The group collectively of the receivers, between the wide receivers, the tight ends, and the running backs, are going to be very, very productive. Week 1, September 8th, 4:25 start. Dallas Cowboys travel to Cleveland to face the Browns, and you will have Tom Brady on the color commentary call. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. Been here for obviously a very long time with you all on Locked On Browns. Appreciate everybody who makes me your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd, you're a bunch of filthy animals, but you're my filthy animals. Join the filthy animals. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It is always free wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go Browns.